Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, founder of Thrive Meetings and Events, and this podcast, which started last summer. I'm so excited to be here to talk to you every single week about how to create safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences. And with that comes talking about different types of food, what people eat around the world, what's indigenous to your neighborhood, new trends that are coming out. And I posted an article a couple of weeks ago in the Facebook group, the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group, about how the fungi renaissance is here. And then it just so happened to remind me that I met these two fungi experts at the New Bern Farmers Market a couple of months ago as well. So with me today, I'm excited, is Kyle Winfrey, who is the owner of Urbia Farms, and then Austin Roper, who is the mushroom cultivator. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So I found you at the farmer's market a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was like a month and a half ago, and you had these big white blocks.
Yeah.
And with these mushrooms coming out of it. And I'm like, what is that? And you're like, you can grow mushrooms on your own kitchen counter.
Yeah.
So, and I'm blown away by it. It's kind of really cool. So tell me about Urbia Farms and how the two of you started this project or this company.
So Urbia Farms is a farm that I created, and it really, the main goal, I just wanted to create something for the community and the people, right? I wanted a business that was geared towards the benefit of the little guy like me, providing great food for people. And along the way, I met Austin. He's married so my wife's cousin is his wife. So that's how we know each other.
Okay.
He's passionate about mushrooms, and actually he got me into mushrooms and really opened my eyes to the world of mushrooms, fungi. You can add on to that, Austin.
Yeah. So, I just kind of stumbled across mushrooms a few years ago, and
I have to clarify, this is edible mushrooms, right?
Yeah. So these are mushrooms that are, good source of protein, vitamins, and minerals. Not, nothing crazy. Restaurants would serve these, and they're just a great source of protein. I just stumbled across mushroom cultivation a few years ago. I cloned some oyster mushrooms I bought from Harris Teeter and grew them on coffee grounds, and I was hooked after that. So it was a pretty fun experience.
You grew them in your kitchen with using coffee grounds.
Yeah, just cardboard and coffee grounds is all I used.
Okay. So ironically, it's food safety awareness month. I mean, how food safety is that? I mean, what do you have to do to make sure, because it is a fungus, but it's an edible fungus. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, in that particular instance, it was just a hobby type thing, but everything was cleaned and sterilized, and it was spent coffee grounds. So right after they came out of the coffee machine, I would save them and then boil them and just put them in a mason jar with a culture here. I can actually show you.
Okay, this is going to be better than pictures.
So this is full of mycelium, which is the root system of the mushroom. Molds and fungus that don't produce mushroom, they typically have, they're the green ones that you don't want to see. But this white stuff is all of the mycelium for lion's mane mushroom, for example. And that's kind of how I got started, was growing it myself, just seeing how they grow. They're really, really prolific growers. I mean, especially oyster mushrooms, they'll grow on all kinds of things, from straw to cardboard to coffee. They're pretty awesome.
Okay, so when you opened up your magic screen back there, you have those big blocks that I saw at the farmer's market. Do you have any? Are there any?
Yeah.
That we can show.
Here's one here that's kind of producing some mushrooms. This one is on a pretty late cycle. This is probably the fourth flush coming out of this block here.
Okay.
And so you can tell it's starting to lose its ability to produce.
Okay, so what is that? Is that the same stuff that was in the jar, that big block?
Yeah, so in the jar is typically rye. That's what people often make spawn with, is what they call it. And you put a, let me see if I have a dish. Now this here is how you start. You put the spores directly on this.
Okay.
And this dish has a nutrients on it to, feed the mycelium as it grows. Then you'll transfer this to a jar of rye, and then that colonizes that. And then you take this and you inoculate the blocks with it, and then that will colonize, and you finally get the fruit.
Okay.
So
mushrooms. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Those blocks, what they're comprised of is 50% oak sawdust and 50% soybean hulls.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the master's mix. It's kind of like the generally accepted or widely accepted medium for mushrooms to grow on. It's kind of what they love.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So why are you, just a general question, growing them in your house instead of going foraging them out in the woods?
This just gives us greater control over the variety that we can cultivate. If we go forage, we're kind of at the mercy of the environment and the settings here.
Seasons.
And, they're really space efficient. They're really good at breaking down, the substrate that they leave behind is still perfectly usable as compost, or people often use them to farm worms and things like that for, fishing and for making fertilizers and stuff. They're also really good at just, throwing on your garden after you're done. Depending on the species, you can bury the blocks or break them up in your gardens, and you can have oysters growing in your garden, in the fall, things like that. Oyster mushrooms. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Not oysters in the shell.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Okay, and you said rye, and it's not rye like the wheat. It's something different, right?
No, it's rye berries. The grain. Yep.
So what if somebody's who has celiac disease? Would that impact them?
That's interesting. I'm actually not 100% sure. The mushroom fruit bodies themselves, they don't have any gluten in them.
Okay.
So I'm not
feel that. Yeah, later on. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're gluten-free. But I don't think that cultivating them on rye would affect that in any way.
Okay.
I could see it though. It would make sense. Yeah,
that would be interesting for somebody who's gluten-free, if they love mushrooms, to understand that.
Yeah.
I'm going to Google that. That's something totally different.
Yeah.
So to think about now, the two of the links that you sent me, one of them made me laugh only for the fact of the title, but it says mushrooms can save the world.
Yeah.
Or fungus can save the world. And it kind of goes along with that article I just posted about, fungus is the new renaissance. Can you explain, like, what are the benefits of mushrooms for the environment, for our bodies?
Yeah, absolutely. So mushrooms specifically, and they're, also they're a great source of protein. They're a lot more space efficient, as well as having lots of other vitamins and minerals that aren't in typical animal products. And kind of what I was saying before about getting the most bang for each calorie you consume is you want to get, not just fats and proteins and things like that, where like when you would be eating an animal protein, you're typically getting mostly just fats and proteins, which is, all well and good. But in that same number of calories, you can get a comparable amount of proteins as well as lots of other vitamins and minerals that give you a wider range of health benefits. And there's also, fats specifically are pretty dense in calories, but not very dense in nutrients. So you're kind of overworking your body by breaking all those down while not providing the nutrients that you, are using up, but you're still working the system. So it's a good way to just kind of replenish that. And there's a good percentage of our guts, the microbiome inside of us, that is fungal, and it has a lot of benefits in breaking down the food that we do eat and making certain nutrients bioavailable to us. And that's just our bodies specifically. I mean, they can be used in environmental cleanup. They can filter waste through water filtration. They can be used to absorb radiation.
Wow.
Yeah, there's been studies where they've been used as natural pesticides to get rid of certain like ant species and wasp species that they'll take back to their colonies, and it'll infect the whole colony, and they won't come back anymore after that.
Wow.
They're really amazing. Yeah. And if you have mushrooms in any root system, typically that's a good sign, because the
soil's fresh then. Yeah.
And they oftentimes will redirect nutrients for the native plant species. If a tree is dying, they'll redirect nutrients to young and flourishing trees.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really amazing. They're almost like the internet for plants. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to what he was saying, the breaks down hydrocarbons. That's naturally found in oil. I don't think anything else can break that down. You correct me if I'm wrong, but they eat the bacteria that go after plants, the bad bacteria. They can eat that, or they'll consume that to help keep plants healthy. Essentially they're a great pair to most plants in the wild. I mean, they really benefit each other, work off of each other.
So there's mycorrhizal mushrooms that only grow in conjunction with certain plants' root systems, like trees and stuff specifically. And they find that the trees that have that mycorrhizal relationship with the mushrooms, they grow a lot better.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so
who knew? Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Paul Stamets, he's a really big name. He's a mycologist. He's a really big name in the mushroom community. He's the one that found what Austin was talking about, the like ant repellent or insect repellent. He goes into it pretty
in depth.
On how he figured out how to use mycelium to repel and truly get rid of like ant infestations, or it's really cool to look into it. But another thing that he discovered is with bees. So mycelium can help save bees and prolong their life.
Wow.
Yeah, which is huge.
Yeah, they're kind of helping with fighting off some of the diseases that causes colony collapse and stuff like that, like deformed wing disease and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, and it's funny because there's another article that I posted recently about how do we fight invasive species, plants and animals, and the answer was eat them. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're selling your mushrooms in the New Bern Farmers Market. You're selling them to general consumers, but I mean, they're absolutely stunning mushrooms. If you talk about mushrooms, they're absolutely beautiful. So how, for me as a person who's not a humongous mushroom fan, because I guess when you cook them, they get a little slimy, or it's the texture or something like that. But how are chefs buying them? Can we use them in like everyday meals, and how are you pitching that to your customers?
Yeah.
Does that
you can use it as a meat replacement. In fact, that's what Austin does. So I'd say for the people that are on the fence about mushrooms, really it's just about understanding, the impact that they can have. So, for instance, kind of going over how we do things in the farm, and kind of explaining each piece of it so people can understand the kind of behind the scenes. So directly behind Austin there, that's our resting chamber.
Okay.
Right? So our blocks, and you'll be able to see here once he opens it up here, but we have a rack in there, and what we do is we place all of our blocks in here, and what they're doing is they're creating the mycelium is pushing out. It's building back up and trying to pin or push out the slits that we cut. And it's going to stay in there. It keeps it out of our fruiting chamber, and it allows only the blocks that are ready to fruit be in the fruiting chamber. And that's
it's a good way to save space.
Yeah. So when they're pinning, what we'll do is we'll put them from the resting chamber into our fruiting chamber there. And our fruiting chamber, we control everything about it. The light, our light cycle, the humidity in the air, the temperature, the CO2. Those are all really important things when it comes to growing mushrooms. And we create the ideal conditions for the mushrooms to flourish. Yeah. So once they're ready in there, we'll bring it, to the people. But that's kind of our process. It's not a complicated process. Our biggest things are that we focus on is keeping everything as clean as we can have it.
We don't want to fight with any other bacteria or microbes, or there's so many. You can't get all the spores out of the air. Every breath has got millions of spores in it. I mean, they're really everywhere. And so basically we have to make sure that the conditions are better for the mushrooms we want than the things we don't want.
Gotcha.
And kind of keep everything as clean as we can along the way. That way they're not fighting. But it's pretty good. I mean, we don't really have a huge issue with competing bacterias or anything like that. Everything's been pretty cool so far.
Yeah. So our main mushrooms that we grow are lion's mane and pink oysters.
Okay.
We started with yellow oysters, blue oysters, really just oyster variety in general. But for now we do lion's mane and pink oysters. Now lion's mane, for instance, reduces heart disease, reduces inflammation in the body. It's just a good booster for the immune system. It improves brain function. We've already kind of hit on this, but it's high in protein. It's a great source of amino acids. Whereas the pink oysters, they're rich in nutrients as well. And they're a great source of antioxidants. They promote blood sugar regulation, versatile, and they're really good. They're delicious. I mean, there's so many benefits to these guys. And really that's what we want to focus on when it comes to educating the masses or just the community. There's so many great benefits to these mushrooms, not just in how they taste, but what they do to your body.
Yeah.
Well, and when you were off getting married 2 weekends ago, I was talking to Austin, and a nurse walked up to the table when I was there, and she was just raving to me. She's like, "Oh yeah, and these are good for this, and this is good for this," and I'm like, and she's like, "I'm a nurse, and I'm all into naturopathic, methods of treating things, and mushrooms are so good for you." I was really impressed and amazed by her. And told Austin, like, she should just stand here with you all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe that, we underestimate how much diet affects our health. And, it's right up there with getting enough sleep and getting enough exercise. It's all equally important aspects of health. And the effects of neglecting those things are I think, pretty dramatic. And, we could all benefit a lot from just eating healthy, increasing our immune system and, all that, I think, is really important, especially nowadays with, how sick people are getting.
Right.
I think if we had better diets, it might make a huge difference.
And how is the, completely off of a tangent here, is like, so you're in you're in downtown New Bern, North Carolina. You're doing this out of your house. What are your plans for the future and growing, this business in New Bern?
Yeah, so we want to kind of get a storefront sometime soon, a place where people can come kind of see what we do, and as well as pick up mushrooms throughout the week, times that maybe they can't get to the farmer's market or something like that. And we really just want to show people what you can do with small scale farming, and show people how accessible it is for them to grow their own, highly healthy and nutritious food.
Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of little smaller farmers just like yourselves at the New Bern Farmers Market. And it's nice to see that.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
It's definitely something that people are getting into, and it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it is. We've got to keep up with, keep everything clean, keep everything cycled, try to track everything so that we can time harvests right. It's a lot of logistic work. Once everything is set up right, though, the mushrooms grow themselves. We just have to take care of everything around them.
Yeah, just kind of stay out of their way.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing I want to go back to, you said something a little while ago is when I said about not foraging them outside, is that you're growing mushrooms then all year long versus.
Yeah. And we do actually want to add forage mushrooms to the list of things that we offer. So we're working to get certified for that, to sell to the public and to restaurants, mushrooms that we forage. And yeah, it's all, in the future plans. We've only been at it for 3-4 months now at this point, and things are moving faster than we can even keep up with. It's crazy.
Well, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. So you've seen a lot of good result, from interest from the consumers in North Carolina and New Bern.
Yeah. It's taken a lot of, I think an edge that we had was cooking samples for people.
Cooking the samples. I was
we would just, Kyle would really whip them up with that cast iron skillet, and lots of skeptics.
I missed that day.
Yeah, we didn't do it. We don't do it every Saturday. It kind of depends on how much space we have available to us, and what we harvested that week. But it helps a lot. I mean, people have no idea what they're in for.
Yeah, most people that are on the fence or just aren't familiar with pink oyster mushrooms, or even we've had a lot of folks that just flat out, they lead with, "I don't like mushrooms. Mushrooms are gross," and then we will encourage them to try our samples. And I love watching kind of the amazement on people's faces that aren't familiar with lion's mane or any of the oyster variety. It's just really cool to see that they really, in that moment, I know that they see that there's a bigger world out there than just your button mushrooms, your white button mushrooms from,
right.
Your common mushrooms that you find at any grocery store,
Right.
It's just really cool to see that.
I was trying to pull up a picture of that. Because I don't think I can show it on my phone. It won't show up real well. Of one of those that I had, the picture that I had taken of them, because they were stunning. I mean, I love taking pictures of the food, that the farmers have at the farmers market. And that was one of them. It was just mind blowing how good they were. Or how beautiful they were.
Yeah.
So Kyle, what kind of recipes were you doing when you were doing that? Was it just cooking them as they were, or serving it with?
So, the way I've cooked them, I didn't want to overpower or kind of mask the natural tastes and flavors of the mushroom. So, how I cook them is in grapeseed oil. And then I'll use, for the pink oyster mushrooms, I'll use a smoked salt, applewood smoked salt.
Okay.
And that's all I use. And
wow.
Just the smoked salt, really mushrooms in general, they really absorb flavor. They absorb anything that you put on them really well. So the flavors that I would get when I would use the smoked salt would be like a very bacon meatiness, like it would make it turn out a lot more meaty than, I guess, mushroom meat in taste and texture. The texture with pink oysters, they're more like a protein, in my opinion, than a mushroom. Mushrooms have that bite to it. It's just like I don't know how to explain it, but it's unique to mushrooms. Pink oysters, in my opinion, I haven't really. It's not like that. It's more like a protein. Now with the lion's mane, that one resembles like crab meat. It's very buttery, very. The way it pulls apart is it resembles crab meat. Yeah.
And so I could use that and make a vegan crab cake then.
Yeah.
So that's a really popular dish to make with lion's mane. Like crab cakes.
All right.
Yeah, I made a mac and cheese, and I put lion's mane in it. Instead of like a lobster mac and cheese, I used a lion's mane mac and cheese. That's one of the most recent things I've done with the lion's mane.
Wow.
Delicious. I mean, so good. I mean, you're limited by your imagination with these guys. I mean, you can use them in a variety of ways,
Okay. Good to know. All right. I'll have to try that out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So we're coming up on our 30 minutes. So is there anything else that you want to share about mushrooms for the audience to understand and learn?
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, I just want people to know how healthy they are. They're really accessible, and they're a great way to add some healthy proteins to your diet that are, have a wider variety of nutrients and phytonutrients and minerals and things like that, as well as, tons of benefits for your brain and your mind and cognition, as well as immune system, things like that. I just think healthy people are happier people.
That's so true. They are. Yeah. All right. Kyle, do you have anything else to add before I ask you my final guest question?
Sure. Yeah, I would just encourage people to come stop by the farmer's market and just have a conversation. We love to talk mushrooms. We could talk all day. Yeah, I mean, I'd love for people to come out and talk to us.
All right. So before I ask you that final question, how do people get a hold of you?
So you can find us on Facebook. That's where we push most of our information. We have an Instagram. They can reach out on Instagram. We even have a TikTok, and we use that to make our recipes. So yeah, I mean, they can social media is probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Awesome. I just posted the link to your Facebook page, and I will find it on or I'll post the Instagram one now as well. Okay, so the question that I ask everybody as they as we're finishing up is, what is your favorite thing to eat and drink?
Favorite thing to eat and drink. So for me, I'm a foodie. I love food, right? And this one was a tough question because I love so many things. But if I had to narrow it down to one food, I would say wood-fired pizza.
Oh,
is really yummy. And for a drink, I would say aguas frescas piña.
What is that?
So it translates to pineapple fresh water. It's
okay.
It's really big in like Mexico or like the Latin culture.
Okay.
Really delicious. It's so good.
And do you put mushrooms on your wood-fired pizza?
Yes, I've had them with that, and they're really yummy. But with or without, I would say that's the winner for me.
Okay, awesome. Austin, what about you?
Yeah, so I probably would have said pizza before. I kind of transitioned to a whole food, plant-based type diet to the best of my ability anyway. I even got a pizza tattoo when I was a teenager.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But those days are gone. I do eat some vegetable pizza and vegan pizza and stuff now and again. But nowadays I really just love to roast or stir fry vegetables and have them with, rice, whether it's white rice or fried rice, things like that. Those are usually my favorites. Okay. And I love kind of what Kyle was talking about, just fruit waters and teas and kombucha is really delicious. Yep. Things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I love kombucha too.
Yeah, we're supposed to have a guy at our market, but he's not been there for a while.
I know. I noticed that too. I need to check in with him. Seed to shaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got some really good kombucha.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance yet to have any. I've been
it's so good. We need to follow up with him and find out where he's been.
Yeah.
Maybe he's traveling across country in his truck doing tastings. So, well, Kyle and Austin, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have New Bernian, whatever that word is, on the show where I live.
Yeah, thank you.
And talk about this. And so everybody, this is Kyle and Austin with Urbia Farms. They are mushroom cultivators in New Bern, North Carolina. Check out our quaint little town. Actually, we've gotten some good PR lately in Southern Living and Our State magazine. So
all right, cool.
Come check us out. And you can find them at the New Bern Farmers Market every Saturday morning, which is from 8 to 1 or 8 to 2, I guess.
8 to 2, I think, yeah.
So everybody come check us out. And thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. And thanks. And everybody, thanks for listening and learning about mushrooms and listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. We're here to create safe and sustainable and inclusive food and beverage experiences for everyone. Join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups Eating at a Meeting. And until next time, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.